Hey, Rooftop Nation. The other day, I was on a phone call. It was a situational coaching call, actually, with mid-level leaders in a tech company. And we were talking about a range of challenges that these leaders were going through in real time. And I mean, honestly, they're going through it. They're experiencing the great resignation with all the talent turnover. They're also going through a merger. They're experiencing changes in their pricing. They've migrated over to new digital systems. I mean, it's unbelievable what these leaders are having to go through on the heels of the biggest pandemic in history. I honestly, it's amazing that they've come as far as they have and that they're still in the game. One of the leaders who I really respect a lot, I'll call him Don, he asked me a question point blank. He's like, Scott, how do I prevent burnout with me? You know, how do I handle my own burnout? He goes, because I have been running so hard and, grinding. It's just like sometimes I figure, what's the point? I ask myself, what's the point? Does anybody even care? And I can tell you, I've experienced that myself in combat. I've experienced it as a small business owner. I've experienced it as a creative, a playwright, and also in the nonprofit space. And it's not a fun place to be when you're reaching that level of fatigue. It's a dangerous place. I talked in the previous module about how burnout is really a step away from up and quitting your job. It's a step away for the wrong reasons. It's a step away from organizational collapse, from violence. Burnout's just not a healthy place to be because you're operating in that fear-based, anger-based state, and the nervous system is just, at its wit's end. So how do we deal with that? How do we get in front of that? I want to spend a little bit of time. I'm going to share with you what I shared with Don, and I'm going to tell you that the way that you deal with burnout, honestly, is you want resilience over resistance. If resistance is what Stephen Pressfield calls that self-sabotage that wells up within us to keep us away from our goals, then resilience is what allows us to overcome that through the integrated application of mind, body, and spirit, and craft. And so how do you get that resilience in a way that it defeats resistance every single day? And that battle has to be fought anew every single day. Resistance never stops running at us. I think you have to do it when risk is low. I think what the problem is that most people, they go through life kind of on semi-conscious autopilot, and they're not super deliberate in how they establish their rhythm. They're not super deliberate in how they navigate their day. They kind of let life happen to them instead of for them. And then when the world goes into chaos and what we thought was order, turns into complete chaos or at least complexity, then we find ourselves struggling and trying to figure out, how do I manage this? Stress levels go up, persistent fear, isolation, and all of a sudden now we're in that sympathetic state. We are in that trance-like state. Fear gives way to anger. Anger makes us temporarily stupid. And organizationally and individually, we struggle. Well, I don't think you can wait until that point to start to deal with it. I think the way that we overcome burnout is to start to deal with it when risk is low. Now, if you're in a heightened situation right now, it doesn't mean you can't start. But what I like to see people do is employ what I've used for years, a system at Rooftop called R4. And it stands for regimen, ritual, rigor, and recovery. Regimen, I'll start off by quoting a Navy SEAL, so there you go. Joint operations in play here. Jocko Willink, one of my favorite thought leaders, he says that discipline equals freedom, and he's absolutely right. Discipline gives us the ability to apply agency in our life even when things are chaotic. There's a reason that Marines are up and running at 5 a.m. in combat, when they're deployed, when they're at home, when they're on leave. It's because discipline equals freedom. So establishing discipline in your life can really help you. What does that look like? Well, it looks like a battle rhythm, a rhythm that you do every single day that you use to address mind, body, and spirit. What are those things that you do to address mind, body, spirit? That's the second R, which are rituals. Rituals are sacred events done at a sacred time and sacred space to address mind, body, spirit. Journaling is an example of a ritual. Breath work is an example of a ritual. Going for a walk every day is an example of a ritual. Meditation is an example of a ritual. Drinking 20 ounces of water in the morning to hydrate yourself and get yourself going is an example of a ritual. So your rituals populate your battle rhythm, and that gives you your regimen. The third R is rigor. This is the way in which you attack that regimen. This is the way in which you perform those rituals relentlessly. Whether you're in the Marriott in Fayetteville, North Carolina, or in the backyard here, you're doing that ritual at the same time in the same space every single day. That's what makes high performers able to do what they do. Now, I had people say to me, well, Scott, I can't do that. I'm too busy right now. Or there's too much happening in my life for me to go run. Really? Well, then that's not going to allow you to play at the highest level. High performers don't do that. Can you imagine Tom Brady saying that? Look, I'd love to do 2-a-days, but there's so much happening right now, I just can't. There's too much going on. My kids are driving me crazy. That wouldn't happen. It's ludicrous to think of a high performer saying that, but you're a high performer or you wouldn't be watching this vlog. So you've got to apply the same rigor to your mind, your body, your spirit, and the rituals in which you use to keep those at the highest level. And finally, recovery. That's the final R. We've got to allow our bodies, our minds, and our spirits time to recover. We can't run at this jacked level of adrenaline and cortisol 24/7 in a heightened state of fight, flight, or freeze. The body's not designed for that. The body is a 250,000-year-old mechanism designed to respond with the sympathetic nervous system to a saber-toothed tiger that leaps out at us from the bushes, deal with it, and then go back to the cave, drop into a parasympathetic state, metabolize the emotion, connect with our peers, bond and lick our wounds and tell the stories that allow us to learn and avoid that crazy-ass tiger the next time. Can I say crazy-ass tiger?
Yes.
Cool. So that's really what your nervous system is designed for. And so if you keep it up here all the time, watching your 401k erode or worried about if you're going to have a job 2 months from now, there's a huge cost to that, to your health, to your resilience, to your ability to connect, and ultimately burnout. And so how you recover is really important. You can do micro recoveries where you just do 3 lower body breaths in the morning when your feet hit the floor, at noon in your office, and before you go to bed at night. That's a micro recovery. A short workout is a micro recovery. Laying on your back in the dark and breathing is a micro recovery, right? Spending time with your children, depending on what time of day it is a micro recovery. But there are those little episodic moments in the day that allow you to reset from a sympathetic state of fight, flight, or freeze to a parasympathetic state of calm and connect, or rest and digest, as Dr. Belisa Veronich says. Does that make sense? Anything that allows you to do that is a micro recovery. Write it into your battle rhythm and allow yourself to do it at certain times of the day before risk goes up. And then when risk does go up, you're simply executing your rhythm and staying in front of the crisis. A macro recovery is also a form of recovery. These are the long weekends. These are the date nights. These are the vacations that are not in your battle rhythm. They're scheduled. They're scheduled and they are protected. And on those macro recoveries, you get time to sharpen the saw, do deep recovery activities, yoga, workouts, whatever it is that allows you to really uncurl your toes and completely reset. It does not mean necessarily chasing the yard animals all over Disney World for 7 straight days and then going back into the grind, right? That's not a macro recovery. I'm sorry, Wes, it's not. So think about those recoveries and how you work them in. That's R4. Again, I was going over this with some of the leaders and one of them was like, yeah, but I'm so busy. There's so much happening right now. I just don't know if I can make this happen. Well, then you're going to be at the mercy of the next crisis that comes your way. Bo Eason once explained to me the difference between a pro and an amateur. A pro knows when to take the coaching. A pro surrounds themselves with high performers who have run the miles and been to the mountain and back. They take that coaching and they put it into play. That's what I'm asking you to do right now. If you want to overcome burnout at an individual level, regimen, ritual, rigor, and recovery. And do it and start it when risk is low. 45 days with a battle rhythm, you'll be surprised at what you can do when the storm clouds roll in. Thanks for what you do, and I'll see you on the rooftop.